Senator, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Let's dive right into it. So first, I did read that you all explored other models when you were sort of creating the plan for Pine Tree Power. So if you could talk briefly about sort of what other models you looked at and why they were valid for the state of Maine.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
So Maine actually has 10 consumer-owned utilities already, and they serve people that live in 98 communities in Maine. So we could look right in our own backyard for some great examples. One near and dear to where I live and to my heart is Eastern Maine Electric Co-op, which provides great service, and they pay 9 cents a kilowatt hour for their rates, whereas us here in the Versant territory pay 13.1 cents. So we know that the service can be great and that the bills can be lower with a consumer-owned utility.
So speaking of the bills, first things first, the statute as it's written sets out this unfit to serve designation that must first be met by utilities before before the legislation is triggered, and then you're able to sort of take them over. So talk a little bit about how that process works. How do you actually initiate this designation that then allows the takeover of CMP and Versant?
Well, actually, to be clear, when
Yeah.
voters vote yes on November 7th, that actually is what triggers the beginning of the process. We would elect a board next year. That board would appoint additional board members, and they would move forward with the purchase price with the utilities to buy those and for us to own and operate them. The fitness to serve standards are actually standards that we think should be in place in general for utilities. We know the Pine Tree Power Company can meet those standards. They include things like reliability, cost, customer service, interconnection of renewable energy. So we know the Pine Tree Power can meet those standards. We also know that Central Maine Power and Versant are not currently meeting those standards.
Okay. And so speaking of cost to consumers, Pine Tree Power, definitely boasts that more affordable bills, but between sort of the high acquisition costs that are purported to be what we'd be facing, plus a couple other areas where consumers would absorb costs, like the high likelihood of litigation with the takeover and the absorption of some staff members that the PUC is going to mandate. How can Mainers feel assured that in fact they are going to save money?
Well, I think the biggest way, or the best way I could explain this, is thinking about going from a high cost rent to owning your own home and having a low interest mortgage. So what we'll do when we buy these two utilities is we will be able to pay off the debt with 2 to 4% interest. Right now, every time the utility makes an investment, we're paying 8 to 14% interest. So a lot of money is leaving just on that fact alone. Now, in the beginning, you talked about models that we looked at. We also looked at a lot of places where these transitions have happened, going from for-profit corporations running electricity grids to nonprofit, locally controlled companies like the Pine Tree Power Company. And we found in every one of those instances, costs went down. Our opponents like to bring up New York a lot. Their costs went down from day one, 20%, and it has stayed that way.
And finally, because I think we're running out of time a little bit here, I wanted to just ask you if you could touch on one more point in terms of making the case for a yes vote on question 3. What is that one additional point that you would bring up?
Absolutely. We know that Maine people are suffering with bad service and very high costs, some of the highest in the country. We know that consumer ownership works here in Maine and around the country. 25% of Americans actually have consumer-owned utilities. And we know this is our best chance to invest in our future, to bring back local control, and to not have foreign corporations and foreign governments actually owning our critical infrastructure. Maine can do this, and I hope that Mainers will vote yes on November 7th on question 3, because we need to take back control of our grid.
And real quickly, because I think we have a little bit of time left, job loss is always a factor for Maine people. So talk a little bit about the job security of folks who are already working for CMP and Versant.
Yeah, so our line workers are doing a great job with the resources they have, and they would get to keep their jobs. And in fact, they get a retention bonus because we know that those are the folks that keep the lights on. We are looking to get rid of the CEOs and the corporate boards that don't even meet in the state of Maine and keep the workers that we know and trust.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and adding a little additional insight for our viewers. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.